Let me tell you, as a 14-year-old, it is extremely uncomfortable. So I can't imagine what it must have been like to shoot those scenes.
And welcome back to another episode of Exposing Ourselves. I'm Travis Ritchie, and this is episode 13, lucky number 13. This is the show where we expose each other to new things. Matt, a big music fan, will assign me one of his favorite albums or playlists to listen to each week, and I, a movie buff, will give him one of my favorite films, and we come together on this podcast to discuss it all. And with me, as always, is my good friend...
Matt Runquist. Hey, Travis. Today we are going to listen to Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings and watch the movie Jojo Rabbit.
Ooh, fun, 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 fun. How was your week, my friend?
It was interesting. Not great.
You know what they say, there's an old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times.
These are interesting times. My wife had her appointment this week that we had waited 3.5 weeks for, and she got a prescription for some tests, which took 3 months to schedule. So she currently has those tests scheduled on May 23rd.
No!
Yes.
Frackin' way, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, the healthcare system is overburdened right now. Both of her providers so far have told her that if things take a long time, she should reach out to them and tell them to, do what they can to push things forward. And she did that, and neither of them has responded at all. So right now, still May 23rd. Things are taking a very long time. So, and then my dog went to the ER 2 nights ago, which was also very unpleasant. She's okay, thankfully, but her lizard
enzymes are way off.
Liver enzymes were very high, and she had to have some medicine and some supportive fluids, but they came down, and so she's back home with us, and as if there was never a problem. So,
yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
So, Travis, I know this is a dangerous question, but how was your week?
Well, I had an interesting week, my friend, definitely in a Chinese curse sort of way. Work was fine and fun, and I had a really fun class at my UCB improv class, and I actually did some looking into getting a dog, which is interesting. I'm ready to finally adopt again. It's been so long. And so I'm starting the process. The first place I looked at, though, I went in and they're like, oh, yeah, you have to sign up and set up an account. And then the adoption fee is $600. And I'm like, what? That's purebred pedigree.
Oh, well, that's not. Awful. Purebreds are like $2-3 these days.
Well, it depends on the breed. But, no, but I don't know. So that was a little disconcerting. So I'm gonna have to go around and actually drive to some shelters and look at some puppies and get the feel for things. I did also.
Oh wait! You can't just get off of that right away. Are you a puppy? Are you a puppy guy?
Oh yeah. So for a couple reasons, I want a dog that's young.
Okay.
And I want a dog that A, I can train. B, I need all the time I can get. With them,
that's totally understandable.
When you've only got 14 years, taking a year off that seems so long.
Yeah, so. We have a strict rule in this household: no puppies, no kittens, no kids. But I certainly understand the desire to have as much time as possible. As you know, we adopt adult greyhounds in this house, and they are pretty long lived for a large breed, but it still ends up being 12, 13, 14 years.
And you can also have more than one, which maybe allows you to do any overlapping.
Yeah.
So I can't do that. So I'm doing one.
Yeah.
Soon, eventually. And what else? I had. I'm saving the big thing until last because there was something else I was going to. I had my conversation with my publisher, which I was going to have the day after we talked last, and that went interestingly. And we've changed my kind of itinerary for my novels. And one of the things that's going to happen is I'm going to be bringing Decimus, my already published novel,
yes,
out from my current publisher that has it to my new publisher.
Okay.
Who hopefully will be able to market it a little better than the current publisher has been. So that was my other big news. And then yesterday I had a whole big thing. Let's just say, I'll shorten it drastically. I took my bike to the store, and I was parked outside of a little shop that I'd walked into for a minute. And while I was inside, some guy basically just came up. This is part like on Ventura Boulevard, right on the sidewalk, and some guy just walked up and hopped on my bike and tried to ride it away. And I ran out and I ran him down and pulled him off of the bike. And causing the bike to crash, but also causing him to, end up on the ground. And I was yelling at him in a way that is unbecoming of a gentleman. But the people around me, all fully, like the onlookers, all were telling me afterwards that they fully expected me to be beating on this guy for stealing my bike, which as if that's what they would do. And I was like, well, that's not me. I'm a Midwest guy, and but I did put the fear of God in him because I'm a 6'1" guy, and he was probably 5.5 feet, and I'm just towering down on him. And so finally, I do wish I'd made him empty his pockets and give me his money because there was damage. No, because there's damage to the bike that's going to cost me probably a couple $100.
Well, I'm glad you didn't do that because I'm 100% certain that's a crime.
Oh, maybe. All right. Well, I suppose. Well, I mean, if he gave me money, not like if I robbed him, but if he gave me money to apologize for trying to steal my
that would
bike,
have been very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so it's probably going to cost me a couple $100 in repairs, and I don't have the bike at the moment, which sucks because that's my only mode of transportation. And I also re-injured the plantar fasciitis I've had on my foot, which was. Yesterday morning, I was actually thinking, "Oh, it's feeling much better today. I'm almost back to normal."
But you must remember from having plantar fasciitis before. That's the classic pattern with plantar fasciitis. Is
right.
Oh yeah, I think it's better now, and then of course you re-injure.
Well, and I do know enough that once the pain stops, you do have to give it more time.
Yeah.
And so I was going to give it more time, but I couldn't because I had to sprint after this guy down the sidewalk. So anyway,
all right.
All things being equal, it's not the worst thing in the world. And as I talked to my mother afterwards, and just being able to rant about the whole thing to her was a deep help. And my mom always said as I was growing up that no matter what happens to you in life, it's just another of life's great adventures, whether it's good or bad. And I told her that, and I was like, yeah, this was definitely another great adventure.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. I have had bicycles stolen, and I have never had the deep abiding satisfaction of running the person down. So that's pretty impressive, Travis.
Yeah, you do imagine that sometimes. You're like, what would I do if I saw the person actually trying to steal the bike? And I guess I got that chance. Now, it was my fault for not locking it up, but and that is a lesson learned.
Don't blame the victim, Travis. Don't blame the victim.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, I have a very similar story. Actually, just today. I dropped an earbud while I was checking out at a store, and I realized it when I was in my car on the way home, and I went back and found my earbud.
Oh, then nobody had taken it?
Nobody had taken it. Yep.
That's great. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. It's interesting because I was thinking just earlier today that when I was in Japan, at one point I wanted to take a time-lapse video with my phone of the clouds at a temple, right? And the temple was pretty empty, but there were people there. And so I put my phone down on the steps and walked away for about half an hour, fully confident that no one would take it. And because it's Japan. And nobody did take it because it's Japan.
Yeah.
And so the idea that here you could literally, minutes I was inside this shop before some dude just walked up to an unattended bicycle and rode it off, thinking that he could just take it. Just ridiculous.
Well, that's one of life's great adventures, Travis.
Yes, it certainly was. And my mom said, "Well, you'll survive. You've survived." And I said, "Well, we have no other choice because we survive until we don't."
Yes. Yeah.
And I will always survive. So let's talk about stuff. pop culture,
Yeah,
music
let's
and
do it.
movies.
What do you say? Should we change things up a little and do
Yeah,
the
let's shake things
movie
up.
first?
Oh, okay. Let's do the movie first. Sure. So I assigned you the movie Jojo Rabbit, which is a movie that was written and directed by Taika Waititi, who you have admitted that you liked his Thor entry, or at least his first Thor entry, Thor Ragnarok, which I also love, and it caught everybody by surprise. And so Jojo Rabbit was actually his follow up to that. And what he did was kind of a farce parody of Nazi Germany at the end of the Second World War, just as Germany was realizing that it was falling. But it follows this little boy whose name is Jojo as he is just enthralled with the Hitler Youth, and he actually is so into being a Hitler Youth that he imagines an imaginary Hitler as his best friend. And Hitler is played by Taika Waititi, and it's a completely ridiculous take. And the things I love about this movie are, I mean, I love Scarlett Johansson just about anything. She plays JoJo's mom. Taika Waititi's performance is kind of delightful as Hitler. It's whimsical, but at some points he does show like the real Hitler anger, which is interesting because he's the kid's imaginary friend. And the Sam Rockwell plays the kind of the commandant of the Hitler Youth, who is just wonderful. He may or may not have a gay relationship with one of his subordinates, played by Reek from Game of Thrones, and it's kind of delightful. Like it doesn't matter the subtleties there, but anyway, yeah, it's just a fun movie. Not one of my favorites, but definitely I thought it was worth recommending as kind of a art house comedy.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Cool. I liked this movie. It is. I think anybody who doesn't spend a fair amount of time wondering if it's okay to like this movie while they're watching it, I don't know if I trust that person, right? I mean, you do spend a lot of it going, well, it's a very subtle take, right? Because like you don't want to trivialize the Holocaust, right? And I feel like that's an obvious thing to say, but it's true, right? Like
right.
Many people died, 6-7 million, something like that, 6 million Jews and 1 million others, right? And of course you don't want to trivialize the war in which millions of more soldiers and civilians died, right? And so to have what is avowedly a comedy with some dramatic moments, it's a tough line to walk. I've never seen Life is Beautiful, although
I was going to bring that up as a possibility. Ooh, that's going on my list because that's a good one.
Yeah, I know that is also a comedy set in World War II, and I know that it's well regarded, but I unfortunately have never seen it, so I can't really place it in relation to this movie. But I think this movie largely sets the right tone, and it is funny, and it's fun. Yeah, the plot is actually pretty mechanical, right? Like you're like, oh, he meets the Jewish girl that's living in his mother's home, and he falls in love with her because he's a 10-year-old, and like what 10-year-old boy doesn't fall in love with a teenage girl who, he's basically her only friend for months at a time, right?
Yeah.
And so that feels like, yeah, of course he falls in love with her, and she's too old for him. And
but it's an interesting kind of love too. Like
it's very tender and very like it's very innocent, right? Like it's 10-year-old love. It's you're a person, you're near me, I like you, right? And I must love you, right? That's
and also he's missing his sister, who she kind of fills a gap for.
Yes.
And yeah.
Well, and I think they said that she was actually a friend of his sister when she was alive, right? So they were similar in age, and yeah.
Well, and she knew Jojo from when he was younger, so she wasn't a complete stranger to the house. That's why the mother was taking the risk of hiding her.
this is a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's beautifully shot. I have absolutely no complaints about any of the like production design or, uh, you know, visual aspects of this movie. The costuming is wonderful. There's a very the storytelling is really, really, really nice too. Taika Waititi is funny, right? Because he has a pretty light touch for a comedian at times. I'm thinking specifically of the moment, and obviously there's spoilers for Jojo Rabbit here. The moment when Jojo discovers his mother has been hung, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's handled in a way that maintains the emotional impact without a visual shock, right? We see
Right.
Jojo grab, so we see the bodies hanging in the square, and Jojo is like, I think he's playing next to them or something, right? I can't remember
He's just
exactly
kind of
what
wandering out
yeah,
into
he's
the
wandering.
street, not
He's a
paying
little
attention.
distracted, and he sees the bodies, and he grabs this one, and he starts crying. And because he's been, interacting with, I want to say Elsa. Is Elsa the sister? Or is Elsa the? It's Elsa and Inga. It's
Right.
anyways,
Yeah.
the Jewish girl that's living in the attic. He's been interacting with her and learning about her, and so there's a moment there where at least I was like unsure. Is he just, are these Jews that have been found and hung, and he's upset because, now he's beginning to realize that Jews are human? Or, and then I'm like, oh no, the shoes, right? The shoes, this is his
Yes.
mom,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
it's not like, because you don't see like, her face turning purple or any like sort of shock
Right. They
value
never show
things.
anything but her
Yeah,
below
they never
the
show
knee
anything
leg.
but her shoes.
Yeah.
It's a really nice touch. So I have nothing but good things to say about that.
Did you think that moment? Let's stay on that because
Sure.
one of my criticisms for the movie is that I don't think the emotion of that moment is quite earned. Um,
Really?
I didn't feel Jojo's sadness for some reason, and it wasn't until he actually went to talk to the Jewish girl that I felt my own kind of sadness for that loss in him. But did you feel that strongly?
No, I've definitely felt like it was extremely emotionally impacting, and it was funny, right? Because he reacts before you do as an audience, right? He's
Right.
like distraught, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is why. And the camera hangs with it for a little while and gives you a moment to digest it. And there is like a style of filmmaking where you just do that, and then they just give you enough time to like realize what has happened, and then you cut away to another thing. And but this one lets you marinate for a little while, and it worked for me. I can certainly understand why it might not work for someone, but it worked for me.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because it didn't. And I'm usually a very empathetic person, and I cry at movies at the drop of a hat.
Oh, I
but-
absolutely cried at that moment. Yes.
Okay, interesting. And they do set it up well with two parts where they see someone else being hung early on in the movie. The mom and he are going about their business, and they see someone else hanging in the town square, and someone, I think a child, wailing over one of those people, and kind of reflecting Jojo's, what he ends up doing. And so I thought that was, and definitely there's a shot later where she is standing on like a embankment, and he's standing down from her, and he's just looking at her shoes, just kind of observing them, and it really kind of sets up that foreshadowing, and so that when you only see the shoes, you know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
So
I as an achievement, I think this is a really impressive directorial job. Acting wise, the actor who plays Jojo is fantastic. I don't know his name, unfortunately, but he's really, really good. Scarlett Johansson is really good in this. I'm very clumsy gozy on Scarlett Johansson, but she really nails this. I felt like she was even a little underused. There's a bunch of good scenes with her, but she's so, and I understand, right? She's very emotionally controlled because she's walking a very fine line with hiding a Jew in her house and clearly participating in other forms of resistance as well.
Right.
And so I understand the choice, but I I would have liked to have seen more with her. Um, Sam Rockwell is absolutely phenomenal in this. It's funny, right? Despite the drag uniform at the end or draggy
Yeah.
uniform at the end, I
Yeah.
didn't pick up on the homoerotic subtext, but that's because I'm straight and cis and I just missed it. But yeah, of course. Yeah, I think
I could
that,
possibly be
I
looking for
mean,
things where they don't exist,
well,
but
I mean,
it
it's
seemed
definitely
since they both had the uniform, the
it's
new
clearly subtext, right?
yeah, and
Uh,
they both have a few moments where they're just like face to face, inches away.
and he always introduces him when other people are around, and it's good. There is some extremely, as you would expect, some extremely uncomfortable humor in this movie. I think the one that stands out to me is the Heil Hitler scene where the SS comes to search Jojo's apartment,
Yes.
and Elsa shows up because they were gonna find her, and so she pretends to be his dead sister, and they
Yeah.
all have to Heil Hitler one another
Every other it's like
individually.
that hello doctor, it's
Yeah,
that moment, but every you have to Heil Hitler every single person in the
yeah.
room individually. You can't just
Now,
Heil Hitler a group,
I
which
I have Heiled Hitler as an actor. You might not know this about me, but my freshman year of high school, I played the butler in Sound of Music, and
wow.
at the end of that, when the Anschluss is happening, uh, the butler does a Heil Hitler, and let me tell you, as a 14-year-old, it is extremely uncomfortable,
Wow.
and so I can't imagine what it must have been like to shoot those scenes and just sit
Oh
there
yeah,
going,
with little
you know,
the
it,
kid's name is Roman Griffin Davis, and he when he's like he's with these all these adults, including Stephen Merchant, by the way, who is always a delight. And then Sam Rockwell comes in, and every time someone comes into the room, everybody has to like Heil Hitler each other again, and it's funny. There's the line from a movie, and I don't remember which it was, but I remember seeing it when I was younger. And there's Hitler is wanting to be heiled, and no one's heiling him, and he's like, "Fine, I'll just heil myself." I don't know why that line was so funny to me, but it stuck with me all these years.
I mean, it's pretty
So
fantastic. So
yeah, and also is a pretty I don't know. I felt like the comedy was definitely there, and when you can, I feel like you can just poke all the fun at Hitler, and he's ripe for fun making.
yeah, and it does, like, the movie does say pretty focused on making fun of Hitler and making most of the Nazis menacing. Oh, I did want to call out. So you alluded to it earlier, but Taika Waititi's scene where he's lost Jojo and he's trying to force him back to the Hitler Youth, and he gets angry and really brings this transformation that is incredible. And it does remind you Taika Waititi, as fun and funny of a dude as he is an excellent actor. And boy, that scene was menacing and scary, and I can't imagine what it must have been like for that kid to be in the room with him.
Yeah, yeah. And you do get the sense too that maybe he didn't, in order to get, it could have been one of those directorial things where maybe you make a choice like that to be so menacing without telling the kid that you
Yeah.
were going to do it in order to get more of a real response. Like I don't know if that's the way they did it, but I could certainly see that being the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. So
So
anyways, yeah, I
you want to
really
rate it?
liked it. Yeah, I'd like to rate it. I'm a little okay. So the subject matter is a little dicey. I feel like it was largely handled well. It was funny. The drama was earned. I'm gonna give this an 8.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna give it an 8 as well. Just because
Really?
I really like it. There are some things that I don't love, and I think you mentioned Life is Beautiful, and we're gonna have to watch that sometime, maybe in the next month or two. Um, And I want to specifically note the difference in emotionality, because when I watched that movie, I was bawling at the end, and I just didn't have that same emotional resonance in this one. So I'd like to see the difference. And so also, there's some things like I'm not a huge fan of Rebel Wilson. I feel like she's almost the wrong kind of broad, and I mean that from a comedic sense. Her comedy is broad in a way that's not biting and kind of like smart broad that you get from Sam Rockwell and Stephen Merchant and Taika Waititi.
I felt like she was really well used, though. I mean, she was there to get a couple of punchlines and go. And when she grabs those weapons at the end and just goes for it, it reminded me of. Did you ever play Wolfenstein 3D, the computer game?
Of course I did.
So it's the precursor to Doom. It reminded me of that, right? Of the German lady just grabbing the big guns and let's go for it.
Yeah. I can. It's not a huge thing. Just all in all, just a couple points off from being a perfect movie. And obviously, I did watch it again, and I enjoyed watching it again. So I think an 8 is a pretty good score for me too.
Yeah.
Incidentally, it was made for only $14 million and pulled in $90 million in the box office. So, pretty good movie.
Ooh, I did also want to note it's from a book called Caging Skies that came out in like 2019. So Taika Waititi must have gotten like an advance copy of this book and optioned it right away because. Anyways, I checked it out from the library. I'm only about 10 pages into it, so I can't speak to whether it's any good, but I'm curious how it treats the subject matter and how it's different from the movie. So maybe I'll hopefully give you a report on that in a week or two.
I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our music, which was an interesting one.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So this is the album Naturally by Sharon Jones and the Dap-Kings. Now, Sharon Jones is the regular lead vocalist of the band the Dap-Kings, but the Dap-Kings also were the backing band for Amy Winehouse back in the day. When she became popular, they hooked her up with a regular backing band rather than just a studio band, and that was the Dap-Kings. And so they achieved some notoriety, but of course, when she died, the Dap-Kings got their regular vocalist back, and they produced some pretty good albums. Naturally is the one that I was first exposed to, and it's still my favorite of theirs. And why do I love it? I love it because it sounds like a throwback to another time, and it's a time of music that I love, right? I love those deep soul and R&B rhythms. I love a great, powerful voice, and I love singing about a man who's done you wrong or a man that you've done wrong to. So there's a lot of that. What'd you think?
This was another really good recommendation for me. I went into it thinking that I wasn't going to like it because I'm not a huge fan of Amy Winehouse, and so I was like, well, what am I going to do with the band that was with her and like the singer who wasn't good enough to become as famous as Amy Winehouse is what I was thinking. Yeah. And I was wrong because Sharon Jones is delightful to listen to. The band is so this music checks all of the boxes that I've established that I'm into. Lyrics that are easy to understand, like audio wise, an interesting music that has a hook, that has a rhythm, that has a melody that is memorable, that you can think about and hear in your head afterwards, it was mostly fun, which I really, really like. There are a couple of things that I didn't love. There's a song that is actually, as a song, really great called "Stranded in Your Love."
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talking that you just didn't need, like setting up the story of the song.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it again today, and in my head, kind of editing it, going, "No, you didn't need it. It would have been a fascinating song, without all this dialogue preamble. it would have been you figuring out kind of what the story is about, like, and the metaphor of being stranded in your love is wonderful. And Lee Fields, the person who sang it with her as a duet, sounds great when they're singing together. But it's almost a 6-minute song. So I'm thinking, well, no, you don't need all the talkie bits to make it a good, like, 4-minute song.
Yeah, it's funny. So this is a throwback to a very specific type of hit, sort of a Tina and Ike Turner, Big Wheel Keep on Turning, or oh God, there's a couple that did a reunion that. It's just a thing from the early 70s where you would have these like long conversational interludes before the song would start or as the song was starting, and so I totally understand your read. You're not wrong to have it, but they were trying to evoke a very specific thing here, and I think they nailed it. Proud Mary, by the way. It's not called Big Wheel Keep on Turning.
Oh yeah, you're right. There's a couple of other things on this album, and this is Naturally, the album. I don't know if we mentioned this, but it's in our playlists that you can find probably in the. Have you been putting the playlists in the?
I have been putting the playlists in the show notes. You can check them out.
All right, check the show notes out.
Music on Music YouTube, which is the French way to say it. YouTube Music, and I've also been mostly putting them on Spotify. So.
Nice. So there's a couple of songs in here that I want to talk. One is that on YouTube Music, one of the things I like is that you can switch over and read the lyrics. Mm-hmm. And there's a song called Natural Born Lover, which is the second song. Yeah. And it's a delightful song, except there's something she says, like she spells out a thing, like, and I keep listening to it and I cannot figure out what she's spelling, and I'm like, oh, so today I'm walking and I'm like, oh, I have my hands free, I'll check the lyrics. No lyrics for this song. So I can't tell you what it is she's spelling, and it doesn't seem like, I tried to spell it out in my head and it doesn't seem like an actual word, which makes me think it's some sort of interesting like code that only she knows. Anyway, I just thought that was funny. Also, weirdly enough, there's another song called Fish in the Dish.
Yeah, Fish in the Dish. I knew you were going to call out Fish in the Dish.
It's a delightful song, and it's funny because she's like, there's a fish in my dish. And I'm going to play a little bit of it. Not here, but I'm just going to bring it up. Oh, also, no lyrics for Fish in the Dish. All right, well, whatever. But the thing that's funny about it is that she's like, there's a fish in the dish, and it's better when you find out that the line is yours. It tastes better when the line is yours. And I'm like, ooh, this is an interesting metaphor for something. Let's see what it is. But no, she's literally talking about fish the whole time, and she like gets in more specific about fish, and you're like, oh no, she just went fishing and singing a song about it. All right, that works.
Ladies and gentlemen, the gay man missed the metaphor about the fish in the dish.
I don't know. Are you sure it's a metaphor? Because it sounded like it was literally about fish to me.
Okay, well, I think that's a good thing to believe.
I mean, if you look at you pull up the lyrics and tell me that it's a metaphor for I don't know vaginas or something.
I don't have time to learn things, Travis. This is not that kind of podcast.
I am sensitive to metaphors in song. I get it, especially with songs where you can understand the lyrics. But I don't know if this was that. I listened to this twice through and did not catch it if it was there. But I was delighted. More to the point, though, I was delighted by the surprise of it not being a metaphor, like that she was actually singing about fish. Which is not unreasonable, in the South. They like their fish down there.
That's true.
Right? So, yeah. I found this to be delightful. It wasn't. It was. Oh, here's another one of my autoplay stories. As I was hiking, listening to this earlier in the week, suddenly another song came on that my mind instantly flagged as inferior. I was like, oh, this is definitely not the same singer, and this is not as good of a song. And so I pulled out my phone. You know who it was?
Who was it?
Rascal Flatts. No, not Rascal Flatts. What's the one? Arizona Flats. No, Alabama Shakes.
Alabama Shakes.
Well, that was embarrassing.
I'm gonna start a Alabama Shakes cover band called Arizona Flats, though.
Arizona Flats. Yeah. So it was Alabama Shakes, and it was not as good. And so I stand. It just reaffirmed my earlier, not dislike, but like, lower score on that.
Sure. So I also have some bad news for you, Travis.
Uh-oh.
Sharon Jones tragically died in 2016.
I know that, and
okay.
yeah, she died of cancer, and I read up on that because I was what I wanted to know, and I felt bad for her being the person who was pushed aside for this white chick who was going to come in and take over her band, and then the white chick dies because she kills herself essentially, and then the band's like, oh hey, come on back, Sharon Jones, and Sharon Jones is like, I got cancer, y'all. Just like, but I'm gonna make one more album just to go out on a bang, and she did.
Yeah, no, it's their last album before she died is fantastic. I knew that they were touring that album, and I didn't go to see it, and I of course regret it. I did have an opportunity to go see them on that last tour, and I think it would have been a fantastic show, but unfortunately, I'll have to just go to another Fits in the Tantrums concert, I suppose.
You know what? That'll probably be a fun show, too.
I wonder what the Dap-Kings are up to, by the way, given that they've had two different singers die on them now.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how you hire somebody.
It'll be hard for them to get another... Well, speaking of shows in person, we actually got a comment, and maybe this is a side tangent before we score, but Kevin Novacek commented on our Facebook post about going to see Godspeed You Black Emperor in concert, and that's not the point of his comment, but one of the things that he said was I really feel music like this suffers a little bit from what Rotten Tomatoes distinguishes between the audience score and the critics' consensus. It is certainly more art than commercial music, so I feel maybe the best judge of this and other music like it shouldn't be would you listen to it more often, which is kind of what I've been, thinking as my metric. And he says, but maybe more, do you feel you're a better person for having experienced this? Mm-hmm. And it brings up a thought that I was having while listening to this playlist, and it was that I really like this playlist. I would put this on my rotation if I had a rotation, and I don't. And I saw part of the tragedy of this thing we're doing is that you're exposing me to a lot of things that I had never have never experienced and music that I'd never listened to. But if we're doing it every week, I certainly barely ever listen to music as it is. And I'm not going to be going back and listening to, this or whatever we listened to last week, or Fits in the Tantrums, and or AJR, got that right, and nice. And so like, it's kind of the tragedy of it, right? Is that I'm not sure I'll ever be listening to these things that I really did enjoy.
Well,
at least
Travis,
not soon.
Travis, we could do another very special episode where you create a playlist of songs that you dug, and actually, maybe we could just publish that as a little...
all that. Yeah, maybe.
Or
well, I don't know if that really would be interesting to listen to.
Or we could do the Travis's Boyfriend playlist. This is my theory.
You know what? Eventually, maybe I'll just have to put that together and post it on the Facebook page.
Yeah,
which
we could
is,
do
by the way,
a
exposing
special
ourselves.
bonus episode. Oh, sorry.
Go
ahead.
You search for Exposing Ourselves on Facebook, and you can email us at exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com. But you anyway. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting dilemma that I'm experiencing these things that I love, but I probably won't be listening to them. So to Kevin's point, I might approach it from a standpoint of, do I feel like I'm a better person for having experienced something? Mm-hmm. And by that metric, I think I would give this album or this playlist. Yeah, it is an album. A solid 8. A solid 8.
Wow, that's fantastic. You know, Travis, I've started to hack the system a little bit lately. I seem to think
Hack
that
away, man.
you prefer playlists to albums, and so I was a little hesitant giving this to you last week. If I hadn't been caught out by totally forgetting, I would
Oh,
have
yeah.
put together a playlist for Sharon Jones as well,
Interesting.
because you sort of historically over the course of the podcast have preferred playlists
Well, when
to
you're giving me
albums.
a best of, it's easy.
Right.
Like, you can
It
always.
is.
In fact, back when I was buying CDs, I would buy best of. So I have the best of uh, Tina Turner, the best of Phil Collins, the best of Prince, the best of the Police, and that's the stuff that I was buying because it was almost a shorthand for someone who wasn't a music aficionado or someone who had maybe a more delicate music sensibility, and I mean that as a refined, I guess, instead of delicate. But which I don't. My music sense is not refined, and so it was just kind of a good shorthand to go for best of albums. So that's not bad. That's not a bad idea, but I do like that we do this. In this case, especially that you gave me an album and it was delightful. It was a good
Cool.
album.
Well,
You know.
that's wonderful news. What would I give this album? I think this one's a 9 for me. I don't know what keeps it from being a 10. I like it a lot. There are not really any
It's the
songs.
talkie bits.
There's not really any songs on here that I don't like. Here's my complaint about it. It's only 40 minutes long. I want
It
more.
was a short album. I was
I-
surprised by how fast that non album song came up on my autoplay.
Yeah, I want 2 more tracks. That's what I want. I want a 12-track album. That would be perfect for me. But other than that, I really love this album. I listen to it still regularly, even though I used to spin it all the time when it first came out.
Yeah,
There
I can
are
see
a
that.
bunch of great songs that really resonate for me, and yeah, it's one of my favorites.
I actually think the short album makes it very accessible. Although I guess if you're already going to buy the album, you want as much as you can from it. But there's no fat in this album. It's
There
pretty
is no
lean.
fat in this
it's
album.
a it's a
Yep.
nice meaty fish in the dish album.
Yeah, except for "Stranded in Your Love." That one is definitely
Well, that
too
has
long.
some fat in the
Too long.
song, and
Too long.
it's too long of a song. And if you just cut out, if you create a radio edit of that song, I'm sure that they go for the talkie bits first because
Yeah.
you don't need them.
Yeah.
You just don't need them for it to be a satisfying song.
You heard it
So-
here first. Travis wants a radio edit of a 13-year-old
Yeah, I'm sure that there already
song.
is one. I would give money. So, do you know what you're giving me next week?
I do.
We-
I do. Is
Okay,
it that
what?
time?
I guess it is. Yeah, sure.
All right. So for you, we have a playlist from the band X Ambassadors. Are you familiar with X Ambassadors?
I've never heard of them. No.
So they broke out, I want to say right around 7 or 8 years ago, with a bunch of songs that really, really were popular. That you probably actually have heard some of their songs before because they've been
Maybe.
used in like ads.
Okay.
Like there's a song called "The Jungle" that you're gonna hear it and you're gonna be like, "Isn't this a truck ad?" It is. In fact, it is in fact
Okay.
a truck ad. But I made a playlist of 7 songs. The whole album's really good, and if you want to listen to the whole album, it's not terribly long. I think it's like 55 minutes or something. But I just chose 7 songs that are sort of my favorites, and they do have 2 albums since this, and I gotta say they are not as catchy. They definitely are one of those bands that kind of percolated their first album for quite some time, and then kind of caught lightning in a bottle. And their more recent stuff is maybe not quite as accessible or catchy.
Interesting.
But X Ambassadors, real good stuff.
Okay.
I would call it like. It's funny. It's like radio rock or something, or stadium rock. It's not hard rock. It's not pop rock. But it's really great to sing along with 20,000 of your friends.
Interesting. All right. Great. Well, I am looking forward to hearing that. I was going to assign you Mission Impossible 3 to
Okay.
listen to watch. I was going to, but I
Oh.
think you're going to get a reprieve
Oh, thank goodness. I'm just teasing.
Well, no, just for that. You know what?
No,
I've decided. I've decided. You know what? No, because I was going to give you something different because of what we listened to. You snuck something into our conversation last
Oh,
week,
did I?
which, as I was listening to our podcast, I was like, it pricked my ears.
What's
my
that?
friend? No, I'm not going to tell you yet. I
okay.
think I'm going to. Because I want to give you 2 Mission Impossible movies.
Okay.
I think I'm going to space them apart.
Okay.
With a week of something else in between.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
I'm not going to respond to that.
I'm making obscene gestures on our which really it wasn't designed to be obscene. I was literally just establishing what happens when you have put 2 of something and you put 1 something in between them. It just happens to look obscene. Anyway, so okay, so I think for this week I'm going to give you Mission Impossible 3. Now, Mission Impossible 3 is an interesting movie, Matt, and I would like you to go into it open-minded because this was a movie that followed up. You've said you've seen Mission Impossible 1 and you liked it.
Yes.
Which is a popular opinion. Mission Impossible 1 is a fairly likable movie. And it was followed by what I would probably consider to be a successful movie, but it was kind of critically reviled. Mission Impossible 2 was directed by John Woo, and it was of its time for sure. And but it was lots of slow-mo, lots of doves flying through the air. Tom Cruise's hair does a lot of amazing acting, and but it is notable. Mission Impossible 2 was notable for having Tom Cruise do some really incredible stunt work with climbing, which was kind of led to this series of him doing his own stunts in movies. So, fast forward several years to Mission Impossible 3, which was directed by J.J. Abrams and was kind of considered to be a relaunch for the franchise. It stars not only Tom Cruise, but also Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is, I think everybody would agree, a serious actor, capital S, capital A, serious actor. And he plays the villain in this movie. And that's all I'll give you, although I do think there's a lot to like about this movie. And it was, I think, J.J. Abrams' directorial... No, not directorial debut. He did Cloverfield before this. And but he's a fairly new director. And it's interesting because with this trend of having a new hot director come in and direct each new installment, it kind of reminds me of the Alien franchise, which started with Ridley Scott, and then James Cameron, and then David Fincher, and then some French guy. Yeah, I know. I didn't like part 4.
Oh, I love Alien 4.
Oh, okay. Well, it's okay to be wrong about things. But anyway, so I want you to go in this with an open mind because I think that there's a lot to love about Mission Impossible 3. I think it goes deeper into the characters and the relationships, and the action is spectacular, and there's some really interesting stuff going on here. So yeah, and then try to like it because I'm going to give you Mission Impossible 4, which is my favorite action movie to date.
All right. Well, that's very exciting. So, I am looking forward to it. Hey,
good.
before we wrap up, I did want to tell you one thing, which is that I opened the Hulu app yesterday, and Welcome to the Jungle, Jumanji, was available for free. So yes, I paid $2 to rent it. You should have just waited a few weeks, and I could have had it for free. But folks, we both liked the movie. If you want to see Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, it's available, included in your Hulu subscription right now.
Nice. Yeah, definitely go watch it if you haven't, and let us know. Let us know what you thought of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, and also what you thought of Jojo Rabbit and our Sharon Jones and the
Dap-Kings.
Yes. And you can do that on our Facebook page by searching for Exposing Ourselves, and also by emailing us at exposingourselvespodcast@gmail.com.
Hey, Travis.
Yeah?
Thank you for exposing yourself to me.
Well, thank you for exposing yourself to me, Matt. It's been great chatting with you. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.